Yes, hi and welcome everyone to this first One We Mind seminar of the semester. Today's speaker is Sibylle Marcotte. She's a PhD student at the ENS in Paris, and she's going to talk about conservation laws for gradient flows. The floor is yours.
Yes, so thank you, and thank you for the invitation. So I will present some works that I have done during my PhD. So this is a joint work with my PhD advisors, Gabriel Perret at École Normale Supérieure and CNRS, and Rémi Gribonval at INRIA à Lyon. And our works focus on conserved quantities during the training dynamic of neural networks. So we will consider the minimization of the empirical risk. So X, Y, YI here is a training data set. L is the loss, and G is some neural network. So for example, here I give the example of a two-layer neural network. So either with a linear activation or a ReLU activation. So in the case of a ReLU activation, it is without bias. So in that case, the weight matrices are UV, and UK, VK are the columns of the weight matrices U and V. So in this talk, I will mainly focus on the two-layer case, but most of my results still work for deeper cases, and I will try to mention it when it is the case, but I will mainly focus on the two-layer case. So we consider the training dynamic as a gradient flow. So this is a continuous counterpart of a gradient descent. And it consists in this differential equation where theta 0 here is initialization and x, y is the data set. So it is a fixed data set. And we want to understand what quantities are preserved during the training dynamic of this gradient flow. So that means that if theta of t is a solution of the differential equation of this differential equation with a fixed data set x, y, and for a fixed initialization theta 0, then we want to have quantities that remains constant for all t, so during the trajectory. And we want that for all possible initialization and for all possible data sets. So if you look at the purple figure, so this represents all possible trajectories starting from the same initialization theta 0. So the trajectory corresponds to different data sets. And it's coincide with a level line of a conserve function. And you can see that both the initialization and the final solution are trapped in that surface. So the main questions that we will focus on are can you characterize a conserve function? Can we build some of these functions? And how many are there? And to speak about what we mean by how many, we will see later on what it corresponds. So the motivation behind this question is that first, conserve functions are linked in some sense with implicit bias. So indeed, let's imagine that the conserve function is I have a fixed rank. Then if you want to have a final solution that is sparse, for example, you can choose an initialization that is sparse rank, that is sparse, so low rank, and then you will have the final solution that will have a constant rank. So with the initialization, so this will be sparse too. So you can see that having a good conserve function allow you to have good properties on the final solution. And so you see that conserve function give a shared property between both the initialization and the final solution. So this is why this is related to implicit bias. And then conserve functions are also just a mathematical tool that can be used to analyze convergence. So that's it. That is the motivation behind this question. We will not focus on this application. We will do like the mathematical analysis or about how can we characterize and build and count this conserve function. So we can begin with a sample example. So a 1D to 1D linear neural network. So in that case, the neural network G is UVX. So the two parameters U and V are both scalars. And the empirical risk is UVX minus Y into the square. So X and Y are the data set and it is fixed. And you see that so we want to minimize the empirical risk. So the set of all possible minimizer is a blue line that is UVX equal to Y. So in that figure, colors represent the level line of the empirical risk. And if we begin with an initialization theta 0, then the trajectory will follow the direction of the gradient of the empirical risk. And this trajectory stay in this purple line. And this purple line coincides with a level line of a conserve function that is u square minus v square. And so the trajectory stay in that line. And at the end, the final solution is trapped at the intersection between the level line of the conserve function and the set of all possible minimizers. So you can see that in that specific example, knowing a conserve function allows us to exactly know which minimizer has been chosen during the training dynamic. And if we take a slightly more sophisticated example, so a 2D to 1D linear neural network. So again, the U parameter is a scalar, but now V is a two-dimensional vector. So now, in our case, the set of all possible minimizer is a blue surface. And so the blue line corresponds to different trajectory, starting with different initialization and associating to different data sets. But actually, all trajectories stay in some level line of a conserve function that is u square minus the norm of v into the square. So this is the right figure represents the different level line. And even for more than one hidden neurons, we have this similar conserve function. So for linear neural network and for ReLU neural network. So here I give the one that are conserved for two-layer neural network, but we have the similar one between two consecutive weight matrices. So we have less conserve function in the case of a ReLU neural network. So this corresponds to the number of hidden neurons. And this conserve function are already known. So this was in particular shown in the two papers, Arroa et al. In 2018 and Du et al. In 2018 too. And in particular, it is worth noticing that these conservation laws are all polynomials. So now we want to know if there are other conservation laws than this one. But to do that, first we need to understand what we mean by other conservation laws. So with the number of conservation laws in general. So indeed, if you consider a set of conserve functions, then any function of these functions is also a conserve function. So to avoid such functional redundancies, we require that all gradients are pointwise linearly independent. So that means that we have all function HA, HK, and for all theta, the gradient in HI theta are linearly independent. So if you consider the dimension of their span, this is exactly their number. So in that sense, it will define the dimension of a manifold. So now we want to characterize, to have a characterization of the Cantor function. So by definition of a Cantor function, we consider this differential equation that is parameterized with vector fields little w. And little w belongs to a functional space big W, such that the trace of the space big W is span in theta by all gradients of the empirical risk for all possible datasets. So when I speak about trace of a functional space, that means that I consider exactly the span of the evaluation of the vector field in theta for all vector fields in big W. And it will be a term that I will quite use later. And actually, we have an exact characterization of a conserved function. So when it is smooth enough, that the function is conserved if only if for all theta, its gradient in theta is orthogonal to the trace of big W, so W theta. So now you see that the true object of interest is big W theta, but a priori, it is hard to manipulate in that formulation. So first, we can begin by doing a first chain rule, and we can make appear like the Jacobian of the neural network transpose. So this is the first formulation. And if now we assume that for all Z, the span for Y of the gradient of the loss is equal to the whole space, then we have a simpler expression of big W theta that is spanned by a union of image of Jacobian transpose of the neural network. So actually, this is an assumption that we will do until the end of my talk. So we require that we have this span that is equal to the whole space, and this is not a strong assumption. It is in particular satisfied for classical losses, and in particular for the mean square error. But still, this characterization of W theta is still a bit hard to manipulate. So we want to have a simpler one. And to do that, we will use a reparametrization and in order to do another chain rule. So we want to factorize our neural network G with the reparametrization phi, and the function that will factorize that is f. So for example, for linear neural network, so for the two-layer case, our neural network is just U transpose of V X. And a natural factorization, and we can propose the reparametrization phi equal to U transpose of V. And similarly, for Relu neural network in the two-layer case, you can write the expression of the neural network and doing appear the column of the weight matrices U and V, so Ui and transpose of Vi, and there appear a set of one-rank matrices Ui transpose of Vi, and we propose that for a reparametrization. So this is a reparametrization that works locally around some parameter UV. So, and such a reparametrization also works for deeper cases for linear unRelu neural networks. And now, thanks to this reparametrization, we can do a new chain rule. And we can make appear the Jacobian of the reparametrization phi in theta transpose. And there is in the right-hand side, like a span on an union of image that depend on the function that factorize G, so the function f. And you can see that
What
if
is
that,
the term?
sorry,
Oh, sorry.
is there a question?
No, no, sorry.
No. So you can see that if that space is a whole space, then there is an equality between W theta and the image of the Jacobian of phi theta transpose. So in that case, W theta is spanned by the evaluation of a finite number of vector fields that correspond to the gradient of the coordinate of the reparameterization phi. So when this happens, we say that the reparameterization phi is minimal. So so the functional space that is spanned by a finite number of vector fields, so W phi, so it's finite dimensional and it is big W phi. So our main theorem is that for ReLU and linear neural network, for the two-layer case, the reparametrization phi that I previously presented are minimal. And actually, this is also true for linear neural network of any depth. But it only works for two-layer ReLU neural networks, but also with bias. And now we call a conservation law a function such that its gradient in theta is orthogonal to W phi theta. So that means that for all theta and for all gradients of the coordinate of the reparametrization, the gradient of H in theta is orthogonal to the gradient of the coordinate of the reparametrization for all theta. So now we will not consider W theta anymore, but W phi theta that is much simpler and that is spanned by a finite number of vector fields. So we can take again our simple example 1D to 1D linear neural network. So we know that in that case, our reparametrization is U times V. So in that case, this is also a scalar. So there is just one coordinate. And we can compute the gradient of the reparametrization. So this is equal to VU. And we also know that U square minus V square in that case is a conserved function. And in fact, it is also a conservation law as its gradient in theta is proportional to U minus V. So this is orthogonal to the gradient of the reparametrization for all theta. So now we can take the 2D to 1D linear neural network. So again, the reparametrization is U times V. And in that case, this is a two-dimensional vector. So there is two coordinates for the reparametrization. So there is phi 1 and phi 2. And we can compute their gradients. And the function U square minus transpose of V into the square. So we already know that this function is conserved. And this is also a conservation law as its gradient in theta is orthogonal to both gradients. And this is geometrically visible when you look at the level surface of the conserved function, and you can see that the two gradients of the coordinate of the reparametrization span the tangent space of this surface. So now we have a simple characterization of conservation laws. So we are able to characterize them. And now we want to know if it is possible to construct at least some of the conservation laws. So to do that, actually, by definition of conservation laws, of a conservation law, you can see that the equation is linear in H. So if you look for a polynomial phi, so our reparameterization is polynomial in theta, and it is the case for the reparameterization phi that we proposed for linear unruly neural network. Then if we restrict ourselves to polynomial conservation laws at a given degree, then we only need to solve a finite dimensional linear kernel. So we can code it with a formal calculus toolbox. So we use SageMath. And our algorithm 1 returns all polynomial independent conservation laws. So in particular, it gives a lower bound of the number of all independent conservation laws in general, so not necessarily polynomial. And in particular, remember that all conservation laws that were already known were all polynomials. So in particular, we found back all already known counter function. So at that stage, we know that there are no other polynomial conservation laws than this one, so the one already known. But it might be that there are conservation laws that are not polynomial and that are missing. So now we want to count the total number of independent conservation laws in general. So to do that, we will use tools from LeAlgebra. So first, we need to define what is the Lie bracket between two vector fields. So we take W1, W2, two vector fields. And the Lie bracket is a new vector field defined at that. So to see a simple case, we can consider two linear vector fields. So W1 theta is equal to A theta, and W2 theta equal to B theta, with A and B two matrices. And in that case, the Lie bracket between the two vector fields in theta is equal to the commutator between the two matrices A and B applied in theta. So geometrically, if you start at the position theta 0 and the particle follow the flow of the vector field W2, then after a time t, it ends up at the position exponential bt theta 0. And then if the particle follows the flow of the vector fields W1 during an amount of time t, it arrives at the position theta 2t equal to exponential at theta of t. And again, by following the flow minus of the vector field minus W2, it arrives at the position theta 3t. And by following the flow during a time t defined by the vector field minus W1, it ends up at the position theta 14. And in fact, we can do a Taylor expansion for small t. And you can see that the second order term corresponds to the value of the Lie bracket in theta 0. So you can see that for small t, this alternating behavior produce motion in the direction of the Lie bracket vector field. So, and we can do a similar computation for general vector fields, and this is the same. And in fact, to see why this notion is very natural in our context, we have the property that if for all theta, the gradient of h in theta is orthogonal to both w1 theta and w2 theta, then for all theta, the gradient of h in theta is orthogonal to the evaluation of the Lie bracket of the two vector fields in theta. And I forgot to tell just before, if the matrices in the previous example are commuting, then the position theta for t coincide with the position theta 0. So thanks to the proposition, as we know that the conservation laws is entirely characterized by the orthogonal condition that are associated with the gradient of the coordinate of the reparametrization. So we know that for all theta, the gradient of our conservation laws in theta is orthogonal to all gradients of the reparametrization of the coordinate of the reparametrization in theta. Then it is also true for all Lie bracket operation between these vector fields. So the true object of interest actually is the generality Lie algebra of W phi. So what is the generality Lie algebra? So this is the smallest space that contains W phi and that remains stable by Lie bracket. And thanks to that, we have a new characterization of a conservation laws. So H is the conservation laws if and only if for all theta and for all vector fields in the generality Lie algebra of W phi, the gradient of H in theta is orthogonal to the evaluation of the vector fields in theta. And actually, this result is quite related to the Frobenius theorem. So this is a famous theorem in control theory and differential geometry. And it says, so with our notation and in our context, that if the dimension of the trace of a functional space evaluating theta as a is locally constant, then there is an equivalence between the two assertions. There exists exactly d minus this dimension independent function such that for all theta, the evaluation of their gradients in theta span the orthogonal of the trace of big W theta. And the fact that we have an involutive condition that says that for all theta and for all pair of vector fields in W, the evaluation of the Lie bracket in theta remains in the trace W theta. So that's it. And by applying this theorem and the previous proposition, I can present our second result. That is that if the dimension of the trace of the generality Lie algebra is locally constant, then there are exactly d minus this dimension independent conservation laws. So what is nice with this result is that this dimension is actually is computationally tractable. So indeed, we have an iterative procedure to compute the generality Lie algebra. So first, we begin with the space W phi, and then at each steps, we will compute iteratively Lie bracket between the first vector fields and the previous vector fields computed at the previous step, and so on. And we have an even more precise criteria about the trace of the iterative functional space. That is that if there is a step I, such as the dimension of the trace of wi in theta is equal to the dimension of the trace of I plus 1 in theta, and if the dimension of the trace of big W I plus 1 is locally constant around theta, then that's it, it stopped, and the trace and the dimension of the trace of the generated Lie algebra is equal to the dimension of the trace of the space at these steps. So this is like a stopping criteria for computing the dimension of the generated Lie algebra, of the trace of the generated Lie algebra. And actually, we can code it again with SageMath, and our algorithm 2 returns this dimension. So now we are able to answer our question. So we found all conservation laws. So we have our algorithm 1. Our algorithm 1 returns all polynomial conservation laws, so not just the polynomial one. And we also know that with our algorithm 1, we found back all already known conservation laws. So there were all polynomials. And now our algorithm 2 gives the total number of independent conservation laws in general. So by comparing the two numbers, we can know if they are missing one or not. So we compare the result of algorithm 1 and algorithm 2 for a sample of depth and for different dimension. And in all cases, we found that there are no other conservation laws than the polynomial one that were the one that were already known. So this was like numerical results, but for the two-layer case, we prove it theoretically. So this is what I will present it now. So for the two-layer case, we know that the reparameterization phi for linear neural network is equal to U transpose of V. And for ReLU neural network, the reparameterization phi is a set of one-rank matrices UI transpose of VI. But so now we will compute the generated Lie algebra. So we will do Lie algebra computation. And so the computation will appear block by block for the ReLU case. So it is enough to trace the case of just one rank matrices UI transpose of VI. So actually, the linear case is enough to treat both linear and ReLU neural network case, and all dimensions are arbitrary. So it will to do the ReLU case, we need to have an hidden dimension equal to 1, and then we treat the ReLU neural network case. So now we consider our first space that is spanned by the finite number of vector fields that corresponds to the gradient of the coordinate of the reparameterization. And we show that by computing the first set in order to calculate the generated Lie algebra, so the space W1, we show that W0 is strictly in W1. And expect for the case R equal to 1, where this is equal. And we also show that for other steps, the spaces Wi remains equal to W1 at the step 2. So thanks to that, we know that the generated Lie algebra of W5 is equal to the space W1. And for W1, we give an explicit characterization of this space. And then we give an explicit characterization of the trace of big W1. And thanks to that, we are able to compute the dimension of the trace of the generality Lie algebra. That is the same as the dimension of the trace of big W1. Thanks to the stopping criteria. And here I give the explicit formula of the trace of the dimension of the trace of the generality Lie algebra in the case of when R is lower than n plus m. And in that case, we assume that the concatenation of the weight matrices U and V has full rank, and as we assume that R was lower than n plus m, the full rank is equal to R. So in that case, the dimension of the trace of the generality Lie algebra is equal to n plus m times R minus R s plus 1 under 2. But we also know that there are functions that are conserved. So this is one that were already known and that are polynomial. And this set of conservation laws define R plus 1 under 2 independent conservation laws. But now, thanks to our theorem, we know that there are exactly R plus 1 under 2 independent conservation law in general. So this one are the only one that are conserved, and they were already known, and in particular polynomials. And actually, for the other case where n plus m is lower than R, we can do, we have the same results, but somehow the formula are less beautiful, so I just presented this one. But in all cases, we observe that there are no other conservation laws than the one already known, and in particular, all are polynomials. So actually, this is a bit disappointing because we propose an algorithmic procedure to characterize, find, and count the number of conservation laws, and we just show that there are no other conservation laws for the gradient flow case and for ReLU linear neural network. But still, we were able to find new conservation laws for overflows. So until now, we were just considering gradient flow associated to an Euclidean metric. So by Euclidean, that means that the matrix in front of the gradient of the empirical risk is just the identity. But now we are able to consider other metrics, so not necessarily Euclidean. So for example, as I said, if the matrix M is equal to the identity, this is the Euclidean metric. But in some case, you may want to add some non-negativity constraint on the parameters. So for example, for non-negative matrix factorization. And to do that, you will consider M equal to the diagonal of the vector of the parameter theta. And then there are other cases where you may want to constrain some part of the parameters to remain non-negative. So this is the case for ICNN, for example, when you want to force the neural network to be convex. So you will add a non-negativity constraint on the weight matrices U, but you don't want to touch the weight matrices V. So in that case, you do a mixed geometry. So this is a mirror geometry on U and the Euclidean geometry on V. So diagonal of U and the identity. And now we are also able to add a momentum term. So this is not a first order differential equation anymore, but now a second order equation with a momentum term theta of t. And in the specific case where theta of t is equal to a constant, this is a Evie Ball case. And the next state of acceleration corresponds to the case where theta of t is equal to 3 under t. So the main differences between conservation laws in the gradient flow setting and conservation laws in the momentum flow setting is that we can show that conservation law for gradient flow setting only depend on the parameter theta. But for momentum flow setting, a conservation law still depend on the parameter theta, but also will depend on the time t and the velocity. And actually, the dependence in t of the conservation law will be exponential with t. So in that case, in particular, we'll show that the conservation laws are not necessarily polynomial ones. So now we want to apply all our previous analysis to the case of the momentum flow or to the gradient flow with an non-Euclidean metric. So for the non-Euclidean metric, you just add the matrix M in front of the gradient of the coordinates of the reparametrization. But for the momentum flow setting, to use all the previous analysis, we now consider a phase space lifting omega that corresponds to the time, the parameter, and the velocity. And now the new finite set of vector fields that we will consider to do the analysis are these new ones. And so the only difference in that case to find conservation laws is that so our algorithm 1 allow us to find polynomial conservation laws. But in that case, as I said, the dependence in t is exponential. So this is not a polynomial. So to be able to use directly our algorithm 1, we can do a change of variable s equal to exponential of tau t. And after that, find polynomial conservation laws in s, theta, and the velocity. And a second option to find conservation laws can be to use the invariances of the architecture and then to apply Noether theorem. So now I can present our new laws. So we have a set of new laws for different settings. So for linear neural network in the Euclidean geometry, the first part presented the one that we already know, so associated to the gradient flow. And now, when adding a momentum term, we discover this new law, so that so you can see that there is this exponential term with t that corresponds to the time. So there is this time the time dependency that is exponential, and then you can see that there is a dependence on the velocity. And now, by using the mirror geometry for linear neural network, so as it is the case for non-negative matrix factorization, for example, we discover this new law in the case of a gradient flow. So what is interesting is if you add a momentum term, then there remain no conservation laws at all. So in the gradient flow case, we discover this new one, and with momentum flow, there are no conservation law at all in that case. And actually, this is a pattern that we will observe quite often in the following. So again, if we consider an Euclidean geometry for a neural network, so we previously I already presented previously the conservation law that were already known in the gradient flow case. And if you add a momentum term, there is no conservation law at all. And similarly, in the case of a mixed geometry, so for example, for ICNN, we discover the conservation law so in the so in that line, and you can see that the conserve function quite interpolates the case of the Euclidean geometry and the mirror geometry. And again, when adding a momentum term, we observe that there are no conservation law at all. So this is a classic systematic pattern that we observe, that when transitioning from gradient flow setting to momentum flow setting, we observe a loss of the number of conservation laws from gradient flow setting to momentum setting. So that's it. So we propose like an algorithm that builds all polynomial conservation laws. So this gives a lower bound of the total number of conservation laws in general. We show that the number of independent conservation laws are entirely characterized by a specific Lie algebra. And then we propose an algorithm that computes this number, and in particular for non-Euclidean geometry or with momentum flow geometry, we were able to find new laws. And some extension that can be interesting in the future is that until now, we were only considering linear unruly neural network. So it can be interesting to generalize this result for other type of architecture, in particular involving max pooling or convolution of involving some skip connection. And also we just consider the continuous dynamic, but it can be interesting to understand what happened with the discrete dynamic. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sibyl. Are there questions from the audience? Maybe I can start. So you already answered my first question about going over to other architectures. Is that something you're working on? Do you have any preliminary results, or do you have an intuition on what will happen?
So we already have some results about convolution and some max pooling, but with a set of two. A set of two, and very simple result about skip connection, but not in the case of two layers. So this is very much more complicated if you add more layer for the skip connection case. But for convolution, it works quite well.
And yeah, and is what is changing the phi map, the parametrization map, or is there or weirder things happening?
No, it's actually quite the same.
Yes, and second question. So you had this. You noticed that there are fewer conservation laws in the momentum case. What does that mean, and is it good or bad news for?
Actually, we don't know. So actually, we were at the beginning first surprised that there were less conservation laws for the momentum flow setting because the space was bigger. So we were considering theta and the velocity. So it was quite natural to think that there were more conservation laws. But in fact, you can also, with invariances, it's more natural to understand that there are less conservation laws because. So I didn't present that part, but there is links between invariances in general of the architecture and so in general of the empirical risk and the function that are conserved. But so I really quickly spoke about the Noether theorem. So if you consider second order equation, in general, you can have a Lagrangian. And if you have a Lagrangian, so that satisfies the Euler-Lagrange equation, then you have a conservation law thanks to Noether theorem. And these conservation laws can be found by considering invariances not only on the empirical risk, but also on the Lagrangian. And in general, so for example, in the case of theta of t equal to a constant, and the Euclidean geometry, the Lagrangian is something like exponential tau t times the velocity v into the square minus the empirical risk. And you want to have invariances of this Lagrangian. So you need to have like an orthogonal invariances as there is a norm, but also an invariances of the empirical risk. And actually, for the case of gradient flow case, so another theorem is a lot stronger. So you need to have invariances both on the empirical risk and the Lagrangian. So on this norm problem that is a subset of the invariances of the empirical risk. But for gradient flow case, you only consider invariances on the empirical risk. And now to be able to link the conservation law in the gradient flow case and the invariances, in fact, you want to so you show that the gradient of the empirical risk is orthogonal to the infinitesimal perturbation of the invariant transformation. And if so, this is an orthogonal characterization. And if you show that this corresponds to the total derivative of our conserved function, then you win. And actually, you can show that this really corresponds to an invariant of the empirical risk by considering just the elementary matrices for the linear neural network case, and just the elementary matrices that span the diagonal matrix for the whole case. There is really a link, but somehow for momentum case, you need to restrict the set of invariances that you are considering.
Very interesting. So there was some question in the chat about, does the person want to pose the question? So it's about papers that might be related. Spline insights into deep learning and another paper. Are there any other questions from the audience?
So thanks for the references.
Yeah. There does not. Go ahead.
Two questions. So far, I'm just wondering, do you do the stuff just for the radio networks of two levels, right? Is that I guess I can't quite remember.
Sorry,
for ReLU, it's 2 layers. Is that right?
Not exactly. So I can precise what just corresponds to the 2-layer case.
Okay.
Okay. So actually, all the beginning for so even the one that I already know is for in-depth. And so the result, you adjust the result by considering 2 consecutive weight matrices. So this also work for in-depth. So
okay.
it's also this reparametrization that also work for deeper cases. But so it's presented in the paper. So in the Norwich paper, well, in the 2 papers probably is recalled. And for so for the ReLU case, it's somehow less beautiful. So, but some such reparametrization exists, and this is still polynomial, and you can do all what we have done here. The only result that does not work exactly. Voilà. So this theorem works only for the 2-layer case for ReLU neural network.
Which one?
This one, showing that the reparametrization phi is minimal in the case of the ReLU neural network case. Do you see my screen?
I see your screen. Yeah, just wondering which arrow you're pointing at.
So this is the theorem 1. So the fact that
Okay. Okay. Okay.
so, but
Okay.
and a conservation law corresponds to the property with W file. So you can characterize the number of conservation law for any depth as it's depend only on W file. And in any case, you have an inclusion between W theta and W file. So the function that you obtain as a conservation law for the deeper case still are conserve function for also the deep case, but they might be that there are conserve function that you are missing. But actually,
Okay.
so I can show that. So ongoing work show that this also work for deeper cases with a high probability.
High probability. Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but okay, that's fine, Thanks.
Ouais, no problem.
Okay, there does not seem to be any more question. Then thanks again, Sibyl. And yeah, we return again in 3 weeks.
Okay, thank you.